there, welcome to Roundup. I'm Zara Danejo. In recent times, domestic violence seems to constantly hover around news headlines. It is ever present with its stories of horrible abuse suffered at the hands of spouses or close family members. But why does it persist? We are all too familiar with the saying, "till death do us part." Is it to be taken literally? For example, Mrs. Osinachi, the famous gospel singer, died allegedly after enduring series of beatings and other forms of physical abuse from her spouse. While she tried to escape her abuser, family, church, and society advised against a divorce. Her case is tragic, but it is by no means unique. We ask today, why does our society seem to enable domestic violence and abuse? To answer this question, joining me via Skype from Maiduguri is advocate and activist Mrs. Zara Yakub from FIDA, Borno State. How come our society seems to uphold marriage over and above the safety of the people involved?
I think the cultural practices and norms is one of the reasons that the violence is still persisting. And the norms is always at the belief that a woman's marital life is her future, and then any form of violation against woman is not seen as a crime. Our culture doesn't give a woman such a right to be single or independent. So I think these are some of the factors that influence the commission of these crimes against women. Then we also look at the vulnerability of women, unemployment, status of women, and then at times men have the belief that a woman life is only limited to a matrimonial affairs. So these are some of the reasons, because we need to educate our people to understand that gender-based violence, domestic abuse is a crime. They have to understand that women are facing all forms of this violation as a result of such beliefs in our community and society as well. So we need to make them understand that there is need for them to see that a woman has a right. She has a right to be preserved. She has a right to be protected, and she has a right to be promoted, because there is this belief that the role of a woman is not even recognized. A woman is not even seen as a tool in development. So we need to make the society to understand that a woman has a life, and whenever she's subjected to such kind of abuses, she may end up losing her future. She may end up can't even contribute anything to the development of the society. So there's need for this culture to change the narrative and the perception as well.
Despite the fact that spousal abuse and domestic abuse are crimes in Nigeria, it seems that there's no real enforcement. There's nobody making sure that perpetrators face justice. As someone who is affiliated with FIDA, how do you respond to this?
I think there is need to, to report cases, no reporting, and then when you want to enforce any form of violation against a perpetrator, there is need for the authority concerned to be informed or to be complained to. And then as FIDA, as an organization, I know that a series of sensitization, enlightenment, and advocacy has we made some progresses on that aspect, because now people are coming out to report cases of domestic violence, and then that of rape, which has been so prevalent. So there are a lot of interventions that came up from different women group organizations that respond to gender-based violence, and this intervention has really made a change. And has changed the narrative as what is being obtained in the past, because people don't report due to some stigma and other reasons that they were not aware or not informed. So there is need for people to be informed on that aspect too. So as FIDA, I know that we have made a lot of progress by sensitizing and enlightening people that There are laws, there are punishment for offenders, particularly the cases of rape. You know, out of 10 cases of rape, 7 out of that case, it will appear to be a case perpetrated against underage children. So it's something that has to do with punishment and has to do access to justice. So we have been educating our people to know that they can access justice wherever there is violation, and by punishing offenders, it will go a long way in reducing the commission of this crime, and we have done a lot of things in that aspect in our own jurisdiction as well.
But FIDA being an organization of lawyers, surely you must have had cases where complainants have asked that you withdraw those cases or that they would like to settle with the perpetrators, especially regarding domestic violence itself.
Yeah, these are issues that need to, at our own end, what we normally do when we come across such cases, we try to make them understand that there are cases that you don't withdraw. Like that case of a rape is a compoundable, there are compoundable and non-compoundable offenses. So no matter how the person want to withdraw a rape case, if there is other evidences, it can go ahead and prosecute that case and prosecute the offender. So I think we need to educate our parents to at least assist prosecutors in assessing justice to the survivor, and then make sure perpetrators face the right of the law at the end of the day.
I'm asking specifically about domestic violence, not necessarily rape and other offenses. Domestic violence itself.
Yes, as I rightly said at the beginning of my response, domestic violence normally due to the norms and cultures, women at times with the parents, they like maintaining the matrimonial status. And at times, you need to just go by the interest of the survivor. If they intend to mediate, or maybe in case of partners intimate relationship, at times, most of the domestic violence occurs between spouses. So normally when we start educating them or prosecuting such cases, when you intend to prosecute, like in Maiduguri before, we don't even have the laws that can prosecute domestic violence. It was recently that the Violence Against Persons and Prohibition Act was passed and is not yet implemented. So if those laws are implemented now, we can go a long way in also trying to, punish offenders of violence against women, because women too, they also they can be violent. So when we are talking about violence, it's not only limited to domestic violence alone. We have to look at violence that occurs among family members, among neighborhoods, and a lot of violence is occurring among people living in a same community or in a same location. So violence is not only limited to partners. So it depends on how grievous it is, and then if the parties are willing to mediate and stop it, then at times you have to go by the norms and the culture.
We'll be taking a quick break now and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Roundup with Zara Denejo, reaching you live from our Abuja studios on Trust TV. Tonight we are discussing domestic violence, and I've been speaking with Mrs. Zara Yakub from Maiduguri. She's joined me via Skype from Maiduguri. Just before the break, you mentioned that some of this violence happens among people within the same location. How can we prepare members of society to handle domestic abuse?
When we said handling or addressing domestic issue, it has to It has to involve the family members, it has to involve the members of the community, because it has to be a collective responsibility. You know, these are some of emerging offenses in our society because of the insecurity that has bedeviled our nation for quite some time. When you look at violence, we need, you know, women also play a role in de-radicalization. So we also have to, you know, take responsibility of, you know, identify possible radicalization of our young ones in the society, and then we need to educate them. We need to tell them the implications of such acts. You know, we have to educate them that is an offense that carries punishment, and then it can be enforced. So we need to, you know, teach our children. We need to sensitize our community. Stakeholders should take responsibility in contributing their own quota to ensure that such commission of this crime have been reduced to a minimum bearable.
Okay, I'm curious, as an organization, do you have a protocol for survivors of domestic abuse?
Yes.
Could you please take us through it?
Yes. Like in Borno State, there is this women empowerment hub established by a search for common ground, for feeder to man. There is legal clinic. There is safe space for survivors, and then all the interventions are based on survivor-centered approaches. So we have a structure that responds to survivors and then address their own challenges.
What challenges do they have?
Of course, they have a lot of challenges. You know, once a woman or any survivor face such kind of violation, and she may encounter psychosocial issues. She may need psychosocial support. She may need empowerment to you know, support her life. You know, some of these violations normally happens to women because they don't have anything doing. Once they are empowered, you know, that idleness will not be there, and then they may not be watching up to a man to take care of them. So such interventions is quite necessary to address some of their issues. That is why we have women empowerment hub. We have there is this where we call it hiram wajen hiram mata in Hausa, where women will come and play ludos and then games with their children. They interact, they chat, they forget their problems. So with our interventions, they forget that they have problems. So all these things are survivor-centered approach strategies that we apply to address some of these challenges.
Do you have counseling and therapy services for survivors who come to you?
Yes, we in partnership with Ministry of Women Affairs, because there are social workers attached to the hub, as well other women-led organization that responds to GBV. They also have similar structures.
All right. What about the stigma that comes with being a divorcee and a single mother? What do you tell survivors about the stigma that they may face from society?
Yeah, all we need to tell them is for them to understand that they are human beings. They are bound to face challenges, and then all this societal perception noise will not help them in any way. So what we normally advise them is for them to feel that nothing happens to them. They can change their life, they can pick up, and by the time they allow themselves or subjected to themselves to such kind of trauma, or to be thinking that something has happened to them, So this will stop them from being what they can be. So we need to tell them that they should be firm, strong to overcome such problems, and we also, implore other uh, ways to educate them on how to take care of themselves, and also the way that they can also make their life better and that of their children, if any. So we need to, calm them down. We need to tell them that nothing can stay forever. It's just a matter of time. So they shouldn't bother about the stigma or any other issue that may come to their way. We are there to support them. There are other people around the world that are looking to support them to become a better person to themselves and to the society as well.
If there's a victim of abuse watching this, what would you say to them?
Victims of abuse,
There might
when
be
they,
victims of abuse that are watching us right now. What would you say to them?
what I will tell them is, let them feel that they are normal human beings, and they have many of us women rights organizations that promote, preserve, and protect their own interests, and we will make sure that they have become a better person. Let them access those women-led organizations that have interventions for victims. Let them not take that issue as a problem. Let them access FIDA, let them access all other organizations that respond to their rights. So, in a nutshell, I have no much to say. When they access us, they will see the professional intervention that they may receive, and at the end of the day they will be happy and appreciate the services provided.
You mentioned earlier that most victims of abuse are not economically empowered to stand up to their abusers. I would like to tilt your mind to the recent case of the gospel singer who has now died, who seemed to be financially stable, who had a career as a gospel singer, but still ended up as a victim of severe domestic abuse. What do you say to this?
Yeah, when I'm responding, I have to respond within the context that I'm familiar with. In my place, I know economic issue is another problem to women, but in her own case, when as I said, violence, it comes in different forms. So her case is a different case, but it's still within the context that I'm talking, that women are also facing. So, because women may like to, get out of this problem, but sometimes they consider some of the support they get from men, so they subject themselves to such kind of, you know, uh, lifestyle. So I just responded within the context that I am operating. So her own case is a pathetic case, and is very unfortunate, and it can happen to any person, but we are looking
The
at it
reason why I'm asking is because
at
it
the
all comes back to society holding on to this idea that you must remain married and you must be patient and persevere. For some of us in the Northeast, it's always ki hakuri, ki hakuri. Do you
Yes.
have a particular protocol to attack this sort of mindset, apart from the awareness that you do? But do you have a particular protocol to attack this sort of mindset that a woman must accept whatever sort of treatment she's meted out as long as she remains married? Because that seems to me the reason why society enables these abusers.
This is not only the reason, but as I said, it's one of the reason. But at this point, there is nothing one can do than to educate the women to understand that they have a future, they have a right, they need to protect such rights. So at times one has limitation in addressing some of these problem. because it's a serious problem that has to do with society and norms and culture. Because sometimes when I could remember vividly, we face some challenges within the members of the community, as if we are bringing in advocacy or campaigns that women are no longer respecting their wife, their husbands. We have to also make them understand that this is their right. These are some of the challenges too. You cannot just you know as a non-government actors, or without any law, you start looking for survivors, or addressing domestic violence without coming to you. So any case that comes to us, what we mediate, we mediate. What we advise, we advise. What we need to educate, we educate. So like my organization, some women access us to take their issue to court. They seek for hulik, and most of the hulik that women are coming to seek in court for FIDA to access justice for them is as a result of domestic violence. So if they have that right. So we do normally, when they access us, we go to court, we ask for hulik, and we will ensure that they get their letter from the courts.
We've heard people say that the best way to tackle domestic violence is to train better sons. Do you agree with this?
Yes, yes. Parenting is very key, because what some when we say background, when you look at the background, like in Islamic law, for a person to qualify to get a wife, to be considered to be given a wife, he has to be of good character, he has to possess some qualities. That's what Islam says. So let me ask, is it practicable nowadays? Women sometimes, once a husband comes to marry their daughter, they don't ask for the background, they don't adhere to the laid down principles of Islam to make sure the man is outstanding to give her, or give your daughter's hand in marriage. So all these things are not put into consideration, but Islam has given us that guidelines, because you don't just give out your virgin daughter into someone's marriage without looking at his background, his character, all these things. It has to do with parenting, it has to be with nurturing. So we need to nurture our children, we need to guide them. And some parents, they will fight with their spouses in the presence of their children, and they are teaching their children to go and apply same to their wives. So we need to also look at it at that side too.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Roundup. Thank you so much.
All right. It's my pleasure being with you. I really appreciate.
Recently, I heard the hit song by late Mrs. Osinachi, Ekweme, which translates to the God who does what he says he's going to do. And it was bone-chilling to hear the emotion in that song. Now, in retrospect, it seems like it was a cry for help. You may not be aware, but there are women around you that are dying in silence, facing domestic violence. Let's all support women to leave harmful situations, harmful domestic situations. Let's not turn a blind eye, because eventually society is the one that loses when women lose their lives because nobody said anything and nobody stood up to them, stood up to their abusers. That has been our show. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next week.